Hi, welcome back guys, this is your friend, Mr. Fused Fiction Hub, bringing you another amazing story. This is the next part in A Bizarre Encounter. I am the author of this story, so let's begin. Chapter 7, Stand By Me. Saiyan stands unleashed and paradise found. The morning was calm and peaceful until a huge splash shattered the silence. Startled by the noise, everyone rushed outside to see what was happening. They were shocked to find several space pods landing in the nearest lake. As the pods opened, King Vegeta emerged from the first one, his face reflecting concern. Approaching Fasha, he asked, "Do you know how worried your crew were? They kept bugging me. Do you know a place where thousands of us can fit nicely?" Fasha was at a loss for words, and King Vegeta's expression grew angrier. Just then, a member of the Speedwagon Foundation stepped forward and spoke up. "You can move to the ocean. We have an empty bunker that could fit your spaceships. It was going to be used to ward off the vampires of Dio, but it seems like your needs are more important." King Vegeta took off his scouter and handed it to the Speedwagon Foundation member to tell everyone the coordinates to the bunker. The journey to the bunker was long and treacherous, but eventually, the group arrived. They marveled at the size of the bunker, which was larger than anything they had ever seen before. It was located in the middle of the ocean, with nothing but water surrounding it. As they approached, the sea seemed to open up to welcome them. The pods smoothly entered the bunker, fitting perfectly into their designated spaces. The group disembarked and explored their new surroundings. The bunker was equipped with everything they needed to survive, including living quarters, food and water supplies, and medical facilities. As King Vegeta negotiated with Dr. Briefs about technology exchange, the others began to settle in. Fasha was fascinated by the new world and couldn't wait to explore it further. Avdol and Joseph were busy setting up a training area, while Holly and Suzy-Q were in charge of organizing the living quarters. As Fasha pulled Jotaro towards her crew, she couldn't contain her excitement. She was practically bouncing on her feet as she introduced Jotaro to the Saiyans. "Jotaro, this is Bardock, Jine, Nappa, Tora, Shujesh, Borgos, Leek, Taro, Beats, and Prince Vegeta," she said with a grin. Jotaro looked around at the group of muscular warriors, his eyes wide in surprise. "Nice to meet you all," he said, trying to hide the nervousness in his voice. Prince Vegeta looked Jotaro up and down, sizing him up. "What's your power level?" he asked bluntly. Jotaro furrowed his brow in confusion. "My what?" Prince Vegeta scoffed. "Never mind, I can't tell you're not a Saiyan." "You are weak," he said, turning away. Fasha rolled her eyes at Prince Vegeta's attitude. "Don't mind him, he's just grumpy. He'll warm up eventually," she said, giving Jotaro a reassuring smile. Jotaro nodded, still feeling a bit uneasy around the intimidating group. He was introduced to the other members of the group, including Jine, Nappa, Tora, Shujesh, Borgos, Leek, and Taro. He couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. Bardock stepped forward, eyeing him up. "So how are your reflexes?" He formed a familiar stance. "Go easy on him, I don't want you to break him," said Fasha. Shujesh looked at Fasha for a moment, then whispered something to Borgos and Nappa. Nappa let out a laugh. Then they turned back and Shujesh spoke. "Since when do you care about men? Fasha, have you fallen for him or even worse drew blood?" Fasha blushed. Jotaro looked around the group awkwardly, feeling the tension in the air. As he realized that no one was going to answer Jotaro's question, she pulled him away from the group. He followed her, wondering what was going on. As they walked a few feet away, Fasha looked back at the group staring at them. She noticed even Prince Vegeta stealing a glance their way with a small smile on his face, although he kept his arms folded, still looking disgusted. Fasha leaned in close and whispered to Jotaro, her face growing redder by the second. "Drew blood means," she said, "it means that if any of our species draws blood during kissing or any other sexual act, our mating hormones kick in, and we can't keep our hands off each other until the other has a child." Jotaro's face flushed with embarrassment. They both turned to look at Leek as he shouted, "Kiss already!" Fasha's face turned even redder and Jotaro looked away, his cheeks glowing. Fasha couldn't help but notice how close they were standing. She could feel the heat radiating off his body, and if she wanted to, she could touch his big muscles. Jotaro's hands twitched as if he was thinking the same thing. Fasha looked at his hands and gave him a nod. Jotaro's hands moved to her waist, and then he surprised her by firmly grabbing her butt cheeks. Fasha was startled at first, but then she realized how gentle he was being. She stretched out her arms and grabbed his sides, feeling the muscles under his shirt. She then moved her arms around his neck, and they melted into each other. Fasha's head was resting against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. They stayed like that until they heard a muffled laugh and the sound of a camera going off twice. They looked over to see the group staring at a photo, and Holly taking pictures. "That Fasha, always kill first and ask questions," Bardock said with a chuckle. "This explains why she fell for this human. It's almost as bad as if she drew blood," Vegeta added with a smirk. Fasha was concerned, but Jotaro placed a comforting hand on her back. Fasha's face went back to normal as Jotaro hugged her. A kid older than Vegeta came by, and he had longer hair that went down to his feet. Jotaro looked around at the group of Saiyans, amazed at their unique biology. He had never encountered a species with such a trait before. Fasha pouted as Jotaro left her side to approach the long-haired kid. She watched as he wrapped his jacket around her, and she breathed in his scent, feeling a sense of comfort wash over her. Jotaro walked over to the new kid, a young Saiyan with long black hair. "Are you going to get a haircut?" he asked, gesturing to the boy's hair. The other Saiyans looked at Jotaro in confusion. They couldn't understand why he was so interested in something so trivial. Tora spoke up. "You mean your hair isn't naturally short?" Jotaro paused, realizing that the Saiyans had a genetic limit to how long their hair could grow. He asked the next obvious question, "If you cut your hair, does it never grow back?" The Saiyans nodded in agreement, and Borgos added, "Once it's cut, it's gone forever." Jotaro couldn't believe it. "That's wild," he said, shaking his head. "I can't imagine living with the same hairstyle forever." The kid tugged on Prince Vegeta's sleeve, whispering, "I found girls our own age. They look beautiful." The prince's interest was piqued, and he followed the child's lead. Fasha knew all too well that there was a scarcity of Saiyan girls Raditz and Prince Vegeta's age who were not somehow related to them. As the two of them ran off, Jotaro was left confused. "Who was that?" he asked. "That was our son Raditz," Bardock replied, gesturing towards himself and Jine. There was a brief pause, and then the atmosphere grew quiet. "So, where are your babies?" Jotaro asked, breaking the silence. "I don't hear any crying, or anyone holding them." This question seemed to shake everyone. "You mean to tell me that you have to deal with that?" Fasha asked incredulously. "You don't have an incubation machine that you put your unborn child into until they are 3 years old?" "No, it's all natural," Jotaro replied simply. The idea of an incubation machine was foreign to him, and he had never even considered such a thing. "Do you want to go see?" said Fasha. Fasha led Jotaro towards the center where the two ships stood, her body wrapped in his jacket. The ships loomed ahead of them, their sleek metal frames glistening in the light. "What are those things?" Jotaro asked, pointing towards the ships. "One of them is King Vegeta's ship," Fasha replied, gesturing towards the larger vessel. "And the other is the medical ship. King Vegeta's ship has space pods that eject from his main ship." Jotaro nodded, his eyes widening in awe as they approached the medical bay ship. The ship's bay doors were wide open, revealing a bustling interior filled with scientists of different alien races scurrying around hundreds of incubation chambers of babies. They climbed the ramp and entered the ship's interior, which was divided into several sections. One section was dedicated to the incubation machines, while another was for first aid. There was a separate area for medical and mental care, with broken bones, coma patients, healing tanks, and chairs for therapy. Fasha gave Jotaro a guided tour of the medical bay, pointing out different machines and equipment along the way. Jotaro couldn't help but feel impressed by the level of technology and care that went into the medical ship. Jotaro and Fasha exited the medical ship. They went around the bunker, Jotaro showing Fasha. Jotaro and Fasha walked around the living quarters of the bunker, exploring the different sections split by gender. Jotaro showed Fasha the girls' living quarters first, pointing out each bedpost with a name tag and luggage stored underneath. As they went around checking for Fasha's name, they came up empty, which made her concerned. Jotaro placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, which made Fasha happy. She breathed in Jotaro's scent from his jacket and wondered if he would ask for it back. She secretly wanted to steal it and keep it for herself. Jotaro then led Fasha to the men's side, which was identical to the women's side with the names of the men on the bedposts. They searched for Jotaro's name but couldn't find it. Jotaro explained that it made sense because they already had a place to stay and his mom really liked Fasha. Fasha nodded in agreement, but as she processed his words, her face turned redder. Fasha and Jotaro exited the men's side of the living quarters and stopped as Brawly, Chili, and Paragus walked by. Fasha and Jotaro stepped to the side to let them pass. Brawly gave a friendly wave as he went up the stairs, but Paragus remained silent. Chili followed behind, making her way to the girls' side of the living quarters. Curious, Jotaro asked Fasha, "Who are they?" Fasha replied, "The kid who waves at you is Brawly, and the man behind him is his father, Paragus. The alien girl with him is Chili. They were all picked up from a planet called Vampa." Fasha and Jotaro walked towards the sounds of training, their footsteps echoing in the training area. Jotaro couldn't help but notice Fasha's tail wrapped around his leg, and he looked down at it curiously. "So, what's up with your tail?" Jotaro asked, genuinely intrigued. Fasha, still wearing Jotaro's jacket, replied from within its comforting embrace, "What do you mean? All Saiyans have tails." As they continued walking, Jotaro observed Fasha's demeanor. She seemed happy and different from the angry girl he had initially met. He couldn't help but wonder why he wasn't getting angry at her, despite the attention she was giving him and the command she had given him before. He recalled the moment when she made him touch her by grabbing her butt, and he felt a strange mix of emotions. It was a feeling he couldn't quite explain. Then, he remembered how he had given her his jacket, how he had comforted her and been unusually nice to her. Jotaro pondered over these actions and realized that he couldn't bear being away from her. There was something about Fasha that drew him in, something that made him want to be by her side. Jotaro and Fasha stepped into the training area of the bunker, where Avdol and Joseph were engrossed in a battle with their stands, Magician's Red and Hermit Purple respectively. Jotaro nodded, eager to train his own stand, Star Platinum, and improve his abilities. Curiosity getting the better of her, Fasha looked around and asked, "What's going on here?" Suddenly, it dawned on Jotaro that Fasha wasn't aware of their unique abilities. He was internally screaming for not explaining it earlier. "We have these strange abilities that manifest as separate entities," Jotaro explained, gesturing towards Avdol and Joseph. "Only those who possess these abilities can see them." In response, Fasha decided to demonstrate her own power. She focused her energy and began levitating off the ground, much to the surprise of Avdol and Joseph, who paused their training to watch her in astonishment. "You can't do this," said Fasha. "This power is called Ki, or your life force energy. Anyone can unlock Ki. It might take you a long time. Just focus on your core and feel the energy." They all nodded in understanding, intrigued by the concept of harnessing Ki, or life force energy. Jotaro, Avdol, and Joseph joined Fasha as she landed gracefully and assumed a meditative position. They followed suit, sitting down and positioning their hands together, mimicking Fasha's posture. With closed eyes, they concentrated on their cores, attempting to tap into their own energy reserves. Fasha led by example, focusing her thoughts and visualizing the energy within her. Gradually, a faint yellow glow emerged between her cupped hands, indicating the presence of Ki. Inspired by Fasha's progress, Avdol, Joseph, and Jotaro continued their meditation, channeling their concentration and determination into unlocking their own Ki. Time passed, with the group maintaining their focused positions for approximately 10 minutes. As they persevered, a similar energy began to materialize between their joined palms, mirroring Fasha's earlier feat. Excitement and a sense of accomplishment filled the air as they witnessed their progress. The prospect of flying piqued their curiosity, prompting Avdol to inquire about the technique. Fasha, still basking in the thrill of their newfound abilities, shared her knowledge with the group. "It will take time and practice, but you need to focus on your Ki and channel it downward," Fasha explained, her voice filled with encouragement. Although she couldn't believe they would grasp it so quickly, she knew that everyone had to start somewhere. After all, she herself had spent a week honing her flying skills. As Fasha turned her head, a glimmer of sadness appeared in her eyes. "This is amazing," said Avdol. "Fascinating," said Joseph. However, Jotaro, ever perceptive, noticed Fasha's melancholy. "Hey Fasha, why do you look sad?" Jotaro descended from the air, his presence commanding and reassuring. He landed beside Fasha and placed comforting hands on her shoulders. At that moment, she felt a wave of warmth and support from her new friends. As Fasha observed her companions gracefully soaring through the spacious bunker, a mixture of awe and gratitude swelled within her. The newfound ability to fly had brought a sense of liberation and excitement to their lives. Curiosity brimming within her, Fasha voiced her thoughts, breaking the silence that enveloped them. "How is it possible?" she questioned, hoping for some insight. Jotaro, ever the calm and composed one, offered his perspective. "I believe our powers, or stands, are somehow connected to Ki," he mused. Fasha nodded, contemplating the correlation between their extraordinary abilities and the life force energy known as Ki. His hands, still warm on her face, provided comfort and a connection that she couldn't help but yearn for more of. However, Fasha wondered if Jotaro shared the same feelings. Lost in her thoughts, Fasha closed her eyes, focusing on the world around them. At that moment of deep concentration, she felt something peculiar, a presence beside her, distinct yet familiar. It was Jotaro's Ki, and alongside it, she could also sense the unique energy signatures of Joseph and Avdol. Opening her eyes, Fasha's gaze met the inquisitive eyes of her companions. Excitement tinged her voice as she relayed her discovery. "I can sense your Ki, Jotaro, and Joseph, Avdol, yours too," she revealed, a sense of wonder lacing her words. "How do you do that?" Jotaro inquired, his curiosity piqued. Fasha met his gaze and smiled gently. "Just focus on the world around you, let your senses extend beyond the surface, and you'll be able to perceive multiple distinct energies," she explained, her voice filled with a sense of calm assurance. Taking Fasha's words to heart, Jotaro, Avdol, and Joseph closed their eyes, immersing themselves in the realm of heightened awareness. Time seemed to stand still as they honed their perception, reaching out to the unseen energies surrounding them. Moments passed, and then they opened their eyes, a newfound understanding glinting in their expressions. Jotaro leaned forward, drawing nearer to Fasha, their connection growing stronger with each passing second. His voice, hushed and filled with a mixture of protectiveness and sincerity, brushed against her ear. "If you ever find yourself in trouble, know that I can sense your presence. I can feel the strength within you," he whispered, his words resonating deep within her. A surge of warmth enveloped Fasha's being, spreading through her like a gentle embrace. It was a comforting realization, knowing that Jotaro's abilities extended beyond their shared experiences, offering a form of protection and support. A soft laughter escaped her lips as she felt the brim of Jotaro's hat tickle her face, a light-hearted moment that seemed to symbolize the growing bond between them. They walked side by side, stepping out of the training area and into the open space of the bunker. Jotaro's mind was filled with questions, pondering the subtle emotions he had sensed from Fasha earlier. He couldn't help but notice the tinge of sadness that flickered across her face when he left her alone for a brief moment. Lost in his thoughts, Jotaro's gaze shifted towards Fasha, who was still wearing his jacket. The sight of her enveloped in his familiar clothing sparked a comforting warmth within him. He observed how she would occasionally bury her nose in the fabric, inhaling deeply as if drawing solace from the scent. It was a small act that held a certain charm, reminding him of their shared bond and the unspoken connection they were forging. Jotaro couldn't deny the gentle tug in his heart whenever he caught Fasha's delicate scent mingling with the familiar aroma of his jacket. It was an indescribable feeling, a sense of belonging and familiarity that wrapped around him like a protective embrace. He found himself cherishing those moments, appreciating the simple yet profound significance they held in their growing relationship. Fasha and Jotaro's attention was abruptly drawn to a commotion nearby. As they approached, a gathering crowd formed a large circle, their voices filled with anticipation and excitement. The familiar voice of Prince Vegeta pierced through the air, dripping with arrogance and disdain. Within the circle, they caught glimpses of a fierce confrontation. The sound of fists colliding and the thud of a body hitting the ground echoed through the scene. Their eyes widened as they recognized the figure standing tall amidst the chaos. It was Broly, the powerful Saiyan they had encountered earlier. Broly, undeterred by the earlier altercation, rose from the ground with an intimidating presence, cracking his knuckles in preparation for another round. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the crowd held their breath, uncertain of what would happen next. Then, emerging from the crowd, Prince Vegeta stepped forward, his regal demeanor evident despite the dust and sweat on his body. His voice dripped with a mix of superiority and disdain. Had enough, provoking him further. Fasha's concern spiked, her instinct urging her to intervene, but she hesitated, realizing the futility of her interference. However, Jotaro's eyes were fixed on Broly, a mix of curiosity and concern etched across his face. Paragus, Broly's father, pleaded desperately, his voice filled with warning and worry. "Stop, Broly, don't do it." The air hung heavy with tension, each second stretching as the standoff continued. Vegeta and Broly paused their confrontation, their intense stares momentarily broken by the unexpected presence of a determined blue-haired girl who bravely stood in front of Prince Vegeta, her arms outstretched in a protective gesture. Alongside her, Chili placed a hand on Broly's clenched fist, attempting to diffuse the tension that hung in the air. The crowd fell into an uneasy silence as the girl spoke, her voice carrying a firm conviction. "Stop this. Fighting won't lead to anything but more pain and suffering," she pleaded, her words resonating with a sense of wisdom and compassion. Vegeta's face flushed with a mixture of anger and wounded pride, his inner turmoil evident in his expression. "I must win, for my pride is wounded." Jotaro, intrigued by the unfolding scene, whispered to Fasha, seeking clarity. "What is pride, exactly?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. Fasha leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, as she attempted to explain. "Think of pride as the unwavering determination to achieve something, to become stronger. It's closely tied to one's identity and the will to protect what is important to them," she answered, hoping to shed some light on the complex concept. Bulma Briefs, the blue-haired girl, stood as a beacon of reason amidst the tumultuous clash of egos. Her presence intrigued Fasha, prompting her to inquire further. "Who is that blue-haired girl, and why does she have the audacity to intervene?" Fasha asked, her curiosity piqued. Jotaro, with a hint of admiration in his voice, responded, "Her name is Bulma Briefs. She's the daughter of Dr. Briefs, the head of all technology departments within the Speedwagon Foundation. He plays a crucial role in negotiating the trade of technology with your king." "You've regained your pride, you've avenged the wound to your pride," Bulma pleaded, her voice filled with a mix of concern and relief. Broly, with blood dripping from his lip, stood there, the physical manifestation of his struggle. Prince Vegeta, his glare lingering for a moment, reluctantly turned his head and walked away, with Bulma faithfully by his side. Observing the aftermath of the intense confrontation, Jotaro remarked, "The tension was really high for a couple of children." Fasha nodded in agreement, offering an explanation. "The Saiyan race is bred for combat, so even the young ones, known as Saiyan cubs, are prepared for anything. They adapt quickly, learning to walk and talk soon after emerging from the incubation chambers." As the crowd dispersed, Chili stepped forward and gently wiped the blood from Broly's lip, her gesture filled with care and compassion. The Saiyan community, with its inherent readiness for battle, now shifted gears, returning to their daily routines, leaving behind the echoes of the conflict that had momentarily consumed their attention. Jotaro and Fasha reunited with Bardock's crew, joining them in discussing the intense fight they had witnessed. Leek and Taro shared their excitement, recounting their favorite moments from the battle. "So did you see the fight?" said Leek. "It was intense," said Taro. "I liked when they broken bar. So what is the plan?" said Prince Vegeta approached, his demeanor focused and direct. Bardock said Jotaro was going to show us Earth life. Jotaro affirmed this with a nod of agreement. The crew soared through the giant doors that opened to the outside world, feeling the exhilarating rush of wind against their faces. The sheer magnitude of the moment filled their hearts with excitement and anticipation. The sound of Raditz' voice echoed behind them as he chased after them, desperately calling out for them to wait and not leave him behind. After what felt like hours of flight, the crew finally landed in the serene town of Moria. Fasha took in the tranquil surroundings and remarked, "This place seems quiet." Jotaro, walking alongside her, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's a pretty peaceful town. But that doesn't mean we should let our guard down." As they leisurely strolled through the charming streets, Jotaro pointed out various notable landmarks and buildings, offering a brief but insightful tour of the area. He shared intriguing anecdotes about the town's history and pointed out popular hangout spots where locals would gather. The group absorbed the sights and sounds, immersing themselves in the unique atmosphere of Moria. They exchanged smiles and engaged in light-hearted conversation, enjoying the relaxed pace of life in this idyllic town. Their attention was drawn to an elderly couple who had set up a small roadside stall, selling an assortment of intriguing items. Bardock, always curious, found their selection fascinating, his eyes fixating on a peculiar suitcase held by the woman. "This item is quite rare," the old lady commented, her voice carrying a hint of mystery. The old man, seemingly intrigued, inquired about the price. Sensing something amiss, Jotaro's demeanor shifted, his instincts kicking. His gaze locked onto the suitcase, his mind racing with possibilities. There was something about it that fell off, a sense of danger lurking within. He couldn't shake the feeling that it held something significant, something that could potentially disrupt their peaceful day. Bardock glanced at Jotaro, noticing the change in his expression. "What's with the suitcase?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Jotaro's voice turned low and urgent as he replied, "That's not just any ordinary suitcase. It's a stand arrow." The group exchanged concerned glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. They understood the potential danger that lay before them. With caution, they approached the elderly couple, their senses heightened, ready for whatever may unfold next. In an unexpected twist of events, the suitcase abruptly opened, and the stand arrow shot out with alarming speed. The piercing arrow found its mark, striking Prince Vegeta's crew, Bardock, and Fasha, leaving them wounded and stunned. Enya, the old woman, vanished into thin air, leaving Jotaro momentarily locked in a gaze with her. As the arrow continued its relentless path, it impaled the old man who had accompanied Enya, causing a surge of concern and uncertainty to ripple through the group. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily upon them. From the depths of the enveloping shadows emerged a young man, his presence an unsettling disruption in the tranquility of their surroundings. Swiftly, he snatched the stand arrow from its resting place, a relic teeming with untold power, and with an air of secrecy, returned it to its concealed case and picked up the old man. Jotaro couldn't escape the bone-chilling sensation that coursed through his veins as his gaze locked with the enigmatic stranger, a palpable tension hanging in the air, thick with intensity and unease. As abruptly as he had materialized, the stranger receded back into the shadows, dissipating like smoke, leaving the group injured and bewildered in his wake. Jotaro's heart sank, heavy with despair, burdened by the weight of uncertainty. The stranger's motives remained shrouded in obscurity, their encounter leaving them on the precipice of an unknown abyss, brimming with ominous possibilities. A veil of foreboding settled over their already arduous journey, casting a sinister hue upon their every step. The need for answers and resolution burned within Jotaro's core, intensifying the urgency of their mission. With each passing moment, the stakes escalated, entwining their lives with a web of inscrutable darkness that threatened to consume them all. Yet, amidst the chaos, Fasha's touch on Jotaro's shoulder brought solace, and their wounds rapidly began to heal. It became apparent that they possessed the strength and worthiness to withstand the stand arrow's effects. Just as tension filled the air, Bardock's scouter burst to life with urgent news about Kakarot, his beloved son. The distressing message revealed that Kakarot was now afflicted with a severe fever, sending shockwaves of concern through the group. Acting swiftly, they hastened their steps, making their way back to the safety of the bunker, where Joseph took on the responsibility of shedding light on the enigmatic phenomenon known as stands. Gathered in the hushed atmosphere of the medical bay, they stood before Kakarot's incubation chamber, their expressions etched with worry and anticipation. The soft hum of machinery provided a backdrop to their shared unease, as they waited anxiously for any signs of improvement, hoping that their comrade would find the strength to overcome this formidable challenge. Then Bardock taught the humans about ki and how to fly. The stand users were naturals because they were using their energy to manifest their stands. Bardock concentrated, and a red energy emerged, forming a humanoid figure with a striking resemblance to Star Platinum. The figure was cloaked in a burial gown, and Bardock's stand handed him a card detailing its abilities, which they all studied in awe. He showed Jotaro the card. So it has the same type stats as Star Platinum. Porpoise Song grabbed a nearby plant which vanished. That's a powerful stand we could have used against Dio, said Joseph. The stand disappeared back into the Bardock. Fasha, seizing her turn, summoned her stand, the name of the game. The female figure in Saiyan armor presented her with a card, revealing its ability to generate effects without a cause, an ability with endless possibilities. As the name of the game touched told Joseph, then there was a flash of light as there stood young Joseph. As he said, "Oh no." They all looked at him in astonishment. The name of the game hands Fasha a card. Effect: Ultimate Life Form Pillar Men. Time limit: forever. She gives it to Joseph. He stares at it. Then he places it in his pocket. Jine showcased her stand, different colors, with the power to revert beings to their original forms and restore lost limbs, a skill that offered unique possibilities. Different colors placed a hand on Joseph's arm as the mechanical arm fell to the floor as a new hand took its place. Joseph was excited. He was about to high-five different colors, then he didn't because he was afraid it would transform him back to an old man. Taro stepped forward, and his stand, loaded gun, emerged, capable of creating powerful weapons. Then he picked up the mechanical hand that was on the floor. Loaded gun touched it. Then it exploded. "Hey, that was an antique," Joseph said in a sarcastic tone. "Out of the way, it's my turn," said Prince Vegeta as a black aura surrounding him unveiled his stand, the reflex, a humanoid figure with a pink shirt with letters that spelled "Bad Man" on the back of it, which had the power to manipulate performance arts. The stand's card hinted at his secret dance sessions, much to his embarrassment. Prince Vegeta's face goes wide as he thinks about his secret dance sessions. Then Nappa laughed. The reflex snapped his fingers and Nappa had to talk in haikus until the prince was satisfied. The prince knew Nappa hated poetry. Then Nappa stepped forward and said, "It is my turn now, so behold my awesome stand. I hate Vegeta." There was a clap from Prince Vegeta. "Show us your moves," said Prince Vegeta. A white aura came out of Nappa as he started posing against his will. A human figure jumped out of Nappa. It did a backflip, landed and bowed. He had a card with the words "Classic Man," which possessed unimaginable magical abilities. Nappa demonstrated his control over magic by making it snow. There was silence then. There was applause. Lemo stepped forward. A stand came out. Lemo's stand, Eat It, had the power to induce consumption in targets, a unique skill that King Vegeta seemed interested. King Vegeta said, "You're the backup cook. Do not poison any of us." "Oh, I can help with that," said Fasha. As the name of the game touched Lemo and handed him a card. Effect: Can only cook good food for friends and allies forever. Broly stepped forward as a green aura erupted around him as a giant figure sprang up from Broly. Iron Maiden allowed him to create divergence and change paths. "You forgot about me," said Raditz, Tarble and Turles. Raditz stepped forward. A blue aura surrounded him as a male figure popped into existence. Raditz, with his stand action, not words, could manipulate reality through the thoughts and imagination of others. This power intrigued the group with its potential. Tarble's stand, "Here Comes the Sun," granted him to shapeshift into a clown or anybody. Prince Vegeta said, "Looks like the arrow mocks us." But then his stand began to change, transforming to the thing they feared, before going back inside Tarble. Turles, with his draconian machine physiology stand, hot-blooded, gained incredible abilities and a mysterious voice from his gauntlet, giving him a dragon suit of armor. The armor faded as Broly lifted his hand for a second with aura around him, then he lowered it. He said, "I'm taking my friend here and going to my house." He walked out of the ship. They followed him. Outside wasn't the bunker. The medical ship wasn't a ship anymore. It was a proper medical building. Instead, there was a big island with houses and tropical trees. It was paradise. It looked like it was always there. Furthermore, it must have been the work of his stand. Jotaro nervously turned to Fasha, hoping she would say yes. "Do you want a second date?" "The first one wasn't really romantic," he said, trying to sound casual. Following Broly, everyone left the bunker to find themselves outside on a beautiful island. The medical ship had transformed into a proper medical building, and the surroundings were adorned with tropical trees and houses. It was a paradise that appeared to have been there all along. Prince Vegeta couldn't help but wonder if the transformation was the work of his stand, contemplating the mysteries of its power. Fasha and Jotaro looked around, exploring the neighborhood in search of Fasha's house. They walked hand in hand, taking in the sights and enjoying each other's company. Eventually, they came across Fasha's house, but something in her made her hesitate. "Fasha, is everything alright?" Jotaro asked, sensing her uncertainty. Fasha looked up at Jotaro, a mixture of emotions playing across her face. "Jotaro, I don't want to be alone tonight. Can I stay with you?" she asked, her voice filled with vulnerability. Jotaro nodded, understanding the underlying request in her words. He gently pulled Fasha's jacket closer to her, offering her warmth and reassurance. "Of course, Fasha, you don't have to be alone, you can stay with me," he replied, his voice soft and comforting. Fasha's worries melted away as Jotaro's words sank in. She felt a sense of relief, knowing that she had someone she could rely on. She leaned into Jotaro, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. In the process, Jotaro's arm inadvertently found its place between Fasha's breasts, making him feel self-conscious. Jotaro blushed, feeling a bit awkward in the unexpected position. He quickly adjusted his arm, trying to find a more comfortable position for both of them. Sorry about that," he mumbled, his cheeks turning a deeper shade of red. Fasha giggled, her laughter echoing in the air. "No need to apologize, Jotaro. It's just a little accident," she said, her voice filled with amusement. Jotaro couldn't help but smile, realizing that Fasha's light-hearted response helped alleviate his embarrassment. He relaxed, allowing himself to enjoy the warmth of their embrace and the closeness they shared. They stood there for a moment, taking solace in each other's presence. The world around them seemed to fade away as they held onto each other, finding comfort in the simple act of being together. At that moment, they both knew that they had found something special, a connection that went beyond words and actions. It was a slice of life, a tender moment between two individuals navigating the uncertainties of their feelings, and discovering the joy of being in each other's arms. The evening had settled in, casting a dark hue over the surroundings. Fasha, Abdul, Joseph, Holly, Suzy Q, and Jotaro returned to Japan, landing gracefully outside the Joestar residence. With a sense of familiarity, they made their way inside, ready to unwind after their eventful day. Feeling a mixture of exhaustion and emotional heaviness, Fasha sought solace in the comfort of her own bedroom. She undressed herself, slipping into her nightwear, and climbed under the covers, hoping for a restful sleep to wash away her sadness. However, as Fasha lay there in the quiet of her room, her mind started to wander. Thoughts of Jotaro and the desire for his company began to occupy her thoughts. An intense blush spread across her cheeks, and she could feel her body responding to these intimate thoughts. Her pajamas clung to her skin, damp with perspiration, particularly in her crotch area. Compelled by her yearning, Fasha made a bold decision. She quietly tiptoed out of her bedroom, careful not to disturb the others, and moved towards Jotaro's room. As she entered, her eyes met the sight of Jotaro soundly asleep, his figure peaceful and relaxed. Without hesitation, Fasha approached him, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She carefully slipped into the bed beside him, seeking the warmth and closeness she desired. As Fasha nestled against Jotaro, he stirred slightly, sensing her presence. In his half-awake state, he instinctively reached out, drawing her closer and resting her against his chest. A surge of contentment washed over Fasha as she felt Jotaro's embrace. His unconscious act of cuddling brought her a sense of reassurance and a feeling of being cherished. With a newfound tranquility, she allowed herself to succumb to sleep, finding comfort in Jotaro's arms as she drifted into a peaceful slumber. At that moment, the worries and sadness that had plagued Fasha seemed to fade away, replaced by a tender connection that transcended words. It was a simple act of seeking solace and finding it in the arms of someone she cared for deeply. Chapter 8, Namekian Revelation. Kami's stand against Dio's creation. Kami stood watch atop his lookout, his gaze fixed on the horizon as he focused on monitoring Dio's movements. His attention, however, was suddenly diverted by a peculiar sight. A space pod had crash-landed near a prison below, where the heroes resided. Although initially unfazed, Kami decided to investigate further. Leaving his post, Kami made his way inside the lookout. It was a serene and peaceful place, seemingly untouched by the chaos unfolding outside. Lost in his thoughts, Kami was soon roused from his contemplation as Mr. Popo approached him, concern etched on his face. Sensing something amiss, Mr. Popo informed Kami of the arrival of countless space pods, descending upon a bunker nearby. Kami's brow furrowed with worry. The sudden influx of alien species stirred apprehension within him. As if to compound his unease, the bunker underwent a remarkable transformation, turning into an island right before his eyes. Kami couldn't quite believe what he was witnessing. The familiar surroundings he had known for so long had changed in an instant. In the midst of this bewildering transformation, Kami caught sight of someone who bore a striking resemblance to Piccolo. Confusion and disbelief washed over him as he heard the word Namekian uttered. It shattered his worldview, challenging everything he thought he knew about himself. Kami felt a deep sense of introspection and uncertainty. His identity, rooted in his understanding of being the guardian of Earth, was now called into question. The realization that he, too, was an alien unsettled him, raising profound existential queries about his origins and purpose. Lost in contemplation, Kami grappled with this newfound knowledge, the weight of it pressing upon him. The slice of life he had known had been disrupted, replaced by a tumultuous inner journey as he sought to reconcile his identity as an alien being with his duty as the guardian of Earth. Dio descended the grand staircase of his opulent mansion in Egypt, his plans unfolding flawlessly. Tonight, Enya would be returning, and he eagerly anticipated her arrival. However, there was urgent business that awaited him in the sublab below. Determined, he made his way towards his destination. As he walked, Dio contemplated the most efficient way to reach the sublab. A mischievous smile played on his lips as he decided to utilize his secret stand, the world, to expedite his journey. With a swift activation of his stand's powers, time seemed to distort around him, propelling him towards his destination in a fraction of the usual time. Within moments, Dio arrived at the entrance of the sublab, a blast door separating him from his objective. He pushed open the heavy door, revealing a state-of-the-art computer system waiting to greet him. "Greetings, Dio. What brings you down here to see me?" The computer's voice echoed through the room. Dio's eyes gleamed with anticipation as he approached the computer. "I say, Dr. Gero, how are the androids progressing? Specifically, I'm interested in the updates on Cell 17 and 18. What can you share with us?" he inquired, his voice filled with intrigue. The computer responded with a hint of pride. "Cell is currently at 90% completion, Dio. As for 17 and 18, their construction has been finished for over 50 years. I am currently in the process of updating their mechanical components to ensure optimal performance," it explained. Dio marveled at the advancements achieved by Dr. Gero and his ability to transfer his consciousness into a compact machine. "It's quite astonishing how you've managed to surpass the boundaries of physical existence and reside within this minuscule contraption. To think that your consciousness now thrives within this intricate machinery is nothing short of remarkable," Dio remarked, his fascination evident in his voice. Dr. Gero's electronic voice resonated with a hint of satisfaction. "Thank you, Dio. Years of research and experimentation have culminated in this breakthrough. The possibilities are endless." Dio nodded, his mind filled with visions of the future and the immense power he would soon wield. As he stood there, contemplating the merging of technology and his own ambitions, he couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Thanks for listening to this tale. Make sure you comment, like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.